This is a similar matchup, by the way, to the one that Maury faced when he faced Shota. It's Sultai Ultimatum on the other side in the hands of Kowalski. Maury's on the Gruul Food deck, and one thing that we pointed out is that the food deck doesn't have any ways to interact with the hand or spells on the stack of Kowalski. So in many ways, it's a race to get that Emergent Ultimatum on the stack, because if it gets there, it's resolving.
Yeah, absolutely. And we saw how difficult it was for Noriyuki to win those game ones. But after sideboard, it looked like he had a very robust plan for the matchup, bringing in 8 highly impactful cards. And, Noriyuki actually able to win it with a very exciting flurry of damage there at the end with a combination of Klothys plus 2 copies of Roiling Vortex.
That's right. And, a very narrow victory there for Noriyuki. Really had to earn it against the Japanese Hall of Famer, and he's going to have his hands full here too. Also, this is a slightly different build here from Grzegorz, as Shota had some innovations of his own in the deck, and so does Grzegorz, honestly. So let's see how this goes. How are things looking so far? Bone Crusher Giant after a trail of crumbs for Maury. On the other side, nothing, just nothing yet.
Yeah, and this is going to be very painful here for Kowalski. He's going to have to run out of Cultivate here to develop his mana. He can follow this up with an Asika's Chariot to have some blockers in play, but he's going to take 3 here from casting this Cultivate, and then an additional 4 from the Bone Crusher Giant. I imagine Mori is just going to probably run out a Wicked Wolf here, although now he's got a Kazandu Mammoth as an option.
That's right.
One card, though, that he needs to be mindful of is the card Shadow's Verdict. And if you run out of Kazandu Mammoth, both of your creatures would die to that sweeper.
A little bit awkward here for Kowalski as well. You have to manage your mana when it comes to casting Emergent Ultimatum, but he actually drew his Ketria Triumph there, which is a one-of that enables him to hardcast Tibalt when drawn. But it also means that he needed to get a second Swamp because it doesn't make black mana so that he could enable Shadow's Verdict, but that leaves him needing triple green or another blue source in there to be able to cast Emergent Ultimatum as early as he can. So he's going to have to keep an eye on that, but the Clearwater pathway off the top should help him there. Now he can decide what to cast. He's going to go with the Chariot.
Yeah, and this prevents him from dying to an Embercleave off the top. As if there is an Embercleave off the top, we're looking at a possible 10 damage from a Bone Crusher Giant, along with an additional +1/+1 counter here on the Wicked Wolf, which would be 14. And this way, Kowalski will have 4 toughness to kind of soak that up. The other option there would be to take a slightly riskier line and just cast Behold the Multiverse to make sure you have the lands available to cast Alrund's Epiphany next turn and then set up for an Emergent Ultimatum on the following turn. Because right now, it is not a guarantee that Kowalski is going to have land number 7 to cast Ultimatum after this Epiphany.
Yeah, he may have to just spin the wheel on the Epiphany and hope it gets there. Other good news, though, from Kowalski's perspective, there's only 1 red mana source now for Mori. He did just draw Fabled Passage for the turn, so he will have access to double red if needed. But this helps Grzegorz plan this turn a little better, right, Paul?
Yeah. And Mori here gets an attack with the Wicked Wolf, deciding whether or not he wants to attack with the Bone Crusher Giant. If he does, and you're Kowalski, probably just going to activate the Chariot and just happily take that trade with the Bone Crusher Giant. This would trade with the Giant and still leave him with 2/2/2 tokens for blocks in future turns.
Boy, we could have a really interesting spin here, particularly if Kowalski doesn't find an untapped source of mana that can help him cast the Ultimatum, where he may just need to go land Epiphany, cross my fingers. If he can go into a land, though, he's going to be in really good position to win.
Yeah, and Kowalski really needs a green source. That is the color of mana that he's missing. He's got 2 blue, he's got 2 black, needs to find a green source, and looks like he's actually opting to keep the Chariot in play to potentially get some value here with the Yorion. If you can get the Yorion into play, that's going to allow him to put 2 additional 2/2s onto the battlefield.
Oh, it's another Ultimatum. Now that Clearwater pathway, it's Murkwater pathway on the other side, which is black. So he's going to have to go for blue here. And as you mentioned,
Epiphany
Paul,
time.
Spin the wheel. He's got double blue, double black, and he just needs to find an untapped green source.
Oh, and this is great. Of course, he can actually attack with the Chariot here because he's taking an extra turn and create an additional blocker here.
Yeah, I'm curious to see if he makes a bird or a squirrel. Squirrel's bigger, but on the ground. He's going to go for the squirrel.
Yeah, I don't think his main game plan is to win through the air. So
Right.
he'd rather just have more power and more toughness on the battlefield.
Oh, he drew Valky off the top of the library. And unfortunately for him, he can't cast it just yet because he doesn't have the amount of mana needed. He actually has his one red mana source on the battlefield with that Ketria Triome, but he's short on all of this.
What's really interesting here is, as you can see, Mori's got a Fabled Passage in hand, right? So that allows him to get that second red source. So what he can do next turn is attack with all of his creatures, right? After he attacks with all of his creatures, sack the food tokens that he has in play with the Trail of Crumbs in the hopes of trying to find an Embercleave off the Trail of Crumbs.
Boy, Kowalski really wanted to see that untapped green source to just make things easy, right? It just would have been so easy. And he even drew another Emergent Ultimatum here. It's just like, he was so close.
And the Darkboard Pathway does give him an extra green source. All right. I mean, this is a lot of creatures that are on the battlefield, but Noriyuki has multiple draws here at an Embercleave. Now, he only has 2 copies in his deck, but remember, he's going to get up to 3 looks here because Embercleave is going to cost 3 mana. He can attack with all 3 of his creatures and pay 3 mana with the Trail of Crumbs and the food that he has in play to look at 6 cards. And with his draw, that's 7 looks at an Embercleave off the top.
Okay, it looks like the Chariot's going to get crewed up again off of the Valky and the 2 birds.
Yeah, this is very aggressive here from Kowalski.
Yeah. I suppose he gets just to maximize on toughness on the ground here. Makes another cat token, plays a Triome, and he just needs to survive.
Yeah.
That's it. He's just got to survive this one turn. Oh my God, I saw double red and I almost freaked out.
Hold on. What happens if he just casts Shatter Skull Smashing and kills 2 creatures? You block the Kazandu Mammoth, and that's not quite enough for lethal.
Oh, you can soak up the 7, take 7, go to 3.
You could take, he would actually take 9, right? Because you can sack the 2 food. So he's actually 1 short, right? So you kill the 2 cats. You attack with everything, the Mammoth gets blocked, and then you go 4 from the Bone Crusher and 5 from the Wicked Wolf. So that would be...
Oh my goodness. Now, does Noriyuki then need to explore options with Trail of Crumbs here? Or, I mean, I know it's got to be tempting for him to just apply maximum pressure, but Mori's going to be very aware that there are now 7 lands of the appropriate colors on the other side, and he can't assume that he's going to win if he passes the turn back.
Yeah, there's a couple of options. You could just go for the smashing here, or you could just go for the attack with everything. You could go with the attack with everything and try to find Embercleave. And I really hope this is what he's going for here.
That's what he's doing, Paul. Everything's in the red zone. Oh my goodness. Maury, he has a flip on the Trail of Crumbs. And look at this. These are blocks that matter for Embercleave. Now, for all Grzegorz knows, Maury has one already. He just played the land, got his second red mana source, and is ready to rumble. But Grzegorz...
Time to get some looks here.
Here we go. Wicked Wolf is going to eat up a food. Double Trail of Crumbs activation. He can reveal a permanent card from among them.
We need Noriyuki's perspective.
It looks like he's looking at Great Henge. I mean, the assumption can be made that he didn't see an Embercleave with this particular look.
Right, because if Kowalski untaps, it's effectively over because he will be able to cast Emergent Ultimatum next turn. Oh, is that enough? I don't think so. That's not going to get it done. Remember, we still have 2 more looks here. Nope.
Oh, a haste creature too.
One
Boy, and
more.
A Bone Crusher, which would be lethal if he ever got another turn. He can still hit, though.
He can. He can. Embercleave is going to cost 3 mana. He can sack this last food.
This
and
is his last look, though.
Look at one more look with the Trail of Crumbs.
That's right. He does have 2 triggers, but he can only afford to pay for the first one to actually look. This is his last chance to hit Embercleave and steal this game back. Kowalski's heart must be pounding as Mori goes through the motions.
Noriyuki, I mean, you're probably going to lose to... Okay, yep, he's doing it.
Here he goes.
One more
Is he going to find it? Double Trail of Crumbs. He only gets to use 1 activation, though, and still be able to cast Embercleave. Oh, and he hits a pair of lands. He
you can see the
missed.
disappointment.
Kowalski is going to survive this turn by the narrowest of margins, and all he has to do is untap and start casting Emergent Ultimatums. Now, he does actually have to find a win, right? This is going to represent a decent amount of damage coming in, but it feels like this one slipped away here from Mori.
Yeah, I mean, I feel if you're on Mori's side, you're kind of expecting the worst at this point. You went for the win here because the window was open. Kowalski was completely tapped out, and now you just kind of have to assume that an Emergent Ultimatum's coming. And once that resolves, I mean, it's going to be over. Kowalski's just going to be able to either just kill him outright with Vorinclex or an Elrond's Epiphany off this ultimatum.
Vorinclex is lethal. You're right. Just if it hits the battlefield, that's exactly 12, and we're done. Although now that I say that, there is Stomp in hand here for Bone Crusher, right?
Right, but of course, Noriyuki will be able to get a third card here.
Right. There's just no way to have all of it. Either the Vorinclex or take another turn. What's the other card? So far, he has Kiorabest the Sea God as the third choice here from Kowalski.
Yeah, so you absolutely cannot give Epiphany.
Right.
You tap everything down, and there's a Vorinclex here on Noriyuki's side.
That's what I'm saying, Paul.
That's 6 hasty damage. So Kowalski
with trample.
Right. But keep in mind, if Vorinclex comes into play, along with Kiorabest the Sea God, that taps down all of Noriyuki's side. So Kowalski, as long as he just makes sure he doesn't leave himself vulnerable potentially here. I mean, Noriyuki might be able to turn it around if Kowalski attacks with everything.
Right.
No. There will be an 8. There's going to be an 8/8 token in play, so the Vorinclex won't be able to get it done. Right.
Not on its own. I mean, there are other creatures here, right?
Well, they all get tapped down. What if you put Vorinclex into play along with the Kiora?
Right. Then
Kiora will go chapters 1 and 2.
You're right.
So it'll create an 8/8 and lock down Noriyuki's side for a turn. So
that's right, and that's exactly what's going to happen here. Wow. What a sequence for Kowalski. He has to be absolutely on the edge of his seat. He looks calm, cool, collected, but holy smokes. And don't forget that the Kraken can jump in the Cadillac here, too.
Yeah, so this is just lethal.
So this is easy lethal now, even through the Stomp in hand. So Kowalski had it the whole time. As we predicted earlier, Emergent Ultimatum gets the job done. Grzegorz Kowalski on the narrowest of margins. I mean, that was 6 cards that Mori got to see to try to find the win during that last turn's attack step. He just couldn't quite get the job done.
Yeah. Well, 7 if you include his draw for the turn.
True,
right?
true.
So he had 7 looks. Now, again, this is not an Embercleave deck. He's not playing the full 4 copies. So, wasn't a favorite to find the Embercleave by any means, but still put himself in the best position to potentially try to steal game 1, because that's where this match, where he's at, where it's the worst possible matchup for him. After sideboard, he's got a better chance. And we saw that when he played against Shota Yasuoka and was able to dispatch him with cards like Garrick's Harbinger and Klothys, which are both extremely difficult for this Sultai Ultimatum deck to deal with.
And Grzegorz is one cool customer, Paul. As you watch, I mean, because Nori, had some potential lines of play that changed a little bit as he was going through those Trail of Crumbs activations. So it actually took quite a while for him to fully go through all of the activations and see what was going on. And meanwhile, Greg is just like, yeah, let's see what happens. I mean, if it were me, I was like, I can't look. You know, just tell me what happened at the end. I can't even look.
And take a look here. Normally, we look at a card like Trail of Crumbs, and you think, "Oh, wow, that's a really good card to get to try to grind out your opponents." Right? You get lots of card advantage with all the different ways to create food. But this is not how this matchup is supposed to be played. If you are on the Gruul side, you need to beat your opponent down. You simply do not have time to get ahead on cards with Trail of Crumbs. So Noriyuki boarding all of those cards out and just boarding in all the really difficult to deal with threats. In addition, he's bringing in copies of the Akura Noir just for the Elder Gargaroths and Pelucranos that Kowalski has access to after sideboard.
I love it. I mean, it's a good way to look at it, Paul, right? We mentioned that Nori doesn't have access to counter spells or ways to interact with the hand from Kowalski. Well, remember, those slots don't just disappear. They get replaced with other cards. And what's the job of those other cards? Get Kowalski dead before those 7 drops actually matter. And Noriyuki is maximizing on that post board here. How do these openers look? Perpetually tapped Castle Garenbrig.
I mean, that's kind of the narrative of this format, right? You have triomes and you have all these lands that come into play tapped. But it is pretty interesting. I have seen Noriyuki. I'm not sure exactly how many forests he plays, but I've seen that Castle Garenbrig come into play tapped a lot.
As far as I'm concerned, he doesn't play forest, Paul. I have no proof against it. Here's the first part of Lovestruck Beast, making the 1/1 token before passing the turn back. After playing a second tapped Castle Garenbrig, Wolfwillow Haven, hey, this is a good start here for Kowalski. You know, this will enable the potential for a turn 3 Asika's Chariot if he can find an untapped land here. But at the minimum, he can go for a Cultivate and continue to develop his land next turn.
Yeah, but just as good a start here from Maury's side, right? We're going to see a turn 3 Kazandu Mammoth. Next turn, he's got a Fabled Passage. I mean, this is a Gruul aggro draw. We have a Kazandu Mammoth that's going to be a 7/7 next turn, and with Embercleave, that's 17 damage next turn if he gets to pull it off.
Holy smokes. That's a lot of damage for where we're at in the game here. It's pretty early.
Yeah, Kowalski might just go ahead and run out in Asika's Chariot here, or go for the Mega Ramp plan.
Yeah, he can cast Cultivate after this Haven, can't he?
Right, but if he does that, I mean, he's going to go to 1 this next turn.
Well, he just did that. Another interesting draw here from Kowalski, who actually does have access to the Tybalt side next turn. But in the meantime, he is taking an absolute thumping.
Oh, man.
You know, the funny part is it's the token that's the difference, right? Because he can play Tybalt and kill Kazandu Mammoth, but then the token can just come over with the Embercleave and finish the game off.
Yeah, or with the Garrick, too, that he has in hand. So
sure.
I think this is... I mean, he might have to go Extinction Event and then play a Valky as a chump blocker, right? Because that would mean...
Oh, you're right.
That would mean that he would be able to... No, wait. No. That even then, that wouldn't be enough.
Oh, it would be a total of 4. He would be dead.
So I think we need to Alrund's Epiphany here first. And then just, you know, see what's on top.
Okay. Just take a little gander at what's on top.
Yeah. You need that extra turn.
I guess you could get Emergent Ultimatum and come up with something.
Well, not only that, that gives you 2 additional tokens, and then on the next turn you have 8 mana. And with 8 mana, you can go Extinction Event Odd, get the Mammoth off the battlefield, then also play Asika's Chariot.
Okay. I like where you're going with this, Paul. I'm picking up what you're putting down here, buddy. This has got real interesting. Elrund's Epiphany, absolutely critical here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't really see another line here, because if you go Tybalt and you kill the Mammoth by simply moving over the Embercleave, that's just 4 damage, which with 2 trampling over, so that would be lethal.
Is there a line where you go Tybalt, get rid of Embercleave?
Yeah, but then that exposes you to an extra Embercleave or a Garrick.
Okay, well, it looks like Kowalski is going to take that line, but the Garrick Unleash is going to unleash the fury here on Grzegorz Kowalski and present lethal. Kowalski just needs no Embercleave and no Garrick there. And unfortunately for him, they're both in hand. And that's Garrick Unleashed getting the job done here for Noriyuki Mori to even things up at 1 game apiece here in our lower round 3. Crunch, you know, it always kind of felt like the Kazandu Mammoth should have trample anyway. I mean, not from a power level perspective, but from a flavor perspective. So it gets the job done. Game number 3 incoming between these two.
Yeah, the problem is even if Kowalski managed to stabilize that board, there are just so many cards, once you go down to 2 life specifically in this matchup, that kill you, right? There's Roiling Vortex, there's Stomp. So,
Clothis,
yeah, Clothis. So it was going to be tough there, even if Kowalski went for the Extinction event into Asika's Chariot. Ooh, that's a slow one.
That is not a keep. Well, he's on the play. Maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you do have a binding.
I can't imagine that turn 4 binding is good enough, though.
Right, because there's no other interaction here. I mean, you're not going to get to Cure Best Sea God until turn 6, at least with the current hand. Okay.
Hey, Grzegorz is the expert, though, and he decided to keep it. We'll see how this goes for him, but he's really going to be hoping to peel a 2 or a 3 drop off the top of the library this turn or next, because look at that Gilded Goose to start things, and it's a land off the top. I mean, it's starting to already feel like one more of those, and it may just be too late. Let's see how the start goes for Mori, though. Does he have that really quick start that he's looking for here?
He needs lands. If he can find a land on the next turn, that really will help unlock his hand. I imagine he's going to want to just run out of Bone Crusher Giant. He could choose to just make a 1/1 here instead, but if he does that, that's not a whole lot of pressure that he's putting on. The Bone Crusher Giant means that at least he can chunk Kowalski for 4.
Yeah, if you're sitting in Kowalski's seat and your opponent goes that, you're about as happy as you could be.
You got to be thrilled.
Right, that you got away with something there. So now I guess you just pay for Yorion and ship it back.
Yeah, and now he gets to set up turn 4 binding into turn 5 Yorion with Noriyuki with a fairly slow start here. So, and no land here was really, really big. Really, really big, because basically Noriyuki can play one of the 3 mana cards he has.
Or the Roiling Vortex.
And then nothing beyond that.
Right. He is going to play the Roiling Vortex, but again, Kowalski not only has the answer for it, but he can just hang here. Boy, this slow start from Kowalski, really not punished. And he thought he was going to get punished. When that Gilded Goose went on the stack, Grzegorz was like, okay, that was one thing I was really hoping to not see. And it's gone really well for him ever since.
Yeah, and if I'm Kowalski, I mean, right now he's considering whether or not he wants to just go ahead and kill the goose, because Mori is clearly mana screwed right now. He needs more mana. And with the Yorion on the following turn, you could blink the binding to get that Vortex off the battlefield.
Great call, Paul. You always bolt the bird when you can, and that's what happened, even though it was so late.
Jeez.
And is this falling apart for Mori? He draws another uncastable spell. He doesn't have the mana. The Vortex is doing his thing, but now we're going to see one of the really powerful interactions if you have the time to set it up, which is Yorion Sky Nomad blinking binding.
Yeah, there's just no coming back from this at this point, right? I mean, we got a Yorion here, blinking the binding. Next turn, we're going to get a Kiora Best the Sea God, and then you're going to be able to refill with the Restoration if you need. But, I mean, it's unclear that Mori can even beat Yorion into the blink into the Kiora Best the Sea Gods. I just don't see it here.
Bone Crusher Giant upstairs is not a concern here for Kowalski as he passes a turn back, and it's all fallen apart for Noriyuki Mori. You can see the despair on his face. You have to feel for him. We've all been in that position where you just needed another land. You just needed something to go your way. And unfortunately for Mori, it's happening to him at the highest stage he's ever played in, and against extremely stiff competition here. But the wheels have well and truly come off here for Mori as Grzegorz Kowalski is now casting 7 mana spells against an opponent who's stuck on 2.
Yep. And the thing is, I mean, it was a good keep for Mori and a lot of potential with his hand. Just needed to find land number 3 on time to at least put up a fight here.
And credit to Kowalski as well for recognizing that killing that Gilded Goose was a way to potentially lock up the game immediately. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now there's 12 damage coming across, and there's just one more turn for Mori to even be in this tournament, as it turns out. This is game number 3. These players are playing for the privilege of playing Javier Dominguez in the lower finals next round, and it's going to be Grzegorz Kowalski who is going to advance as the good game gets said, and he can breathe a sigh of relief. A very quick loss in game number 2 after an extremely close game 1. Game 3, not even in question. Outside of the first couple of turns, it was all Kowalski, and he advances to play against Javier Dominguez. The winner of that lower final is the one who gets to go on to the championship match.